when people start to diet, sometimes just generally the feeling of being hungry can be very alien to them. I'm definitely in that category. Like, I really struggle. Like, it completely capitalizes my mind when I'm hungry. But the times when it doesn't is when I'm very distracted. And distracted in the sense of like work, or usually with other people. Now, I can have a lot of work to do on the computer. If I'm hungry, I'm not getting much work done. Like, I need that to stay away. That's almost like a dripping tap in the corner. I really struggle with that. If I'm at work and I'm training a client, I can go from really hungry to not hungry at all, just because my mind's engaged with someone else. So I find distraction is a really, really good way. Hence why a lot of people struggle in the evenings, because they go through their whole day and then it comes to the evenings and it's like this insatiable hunger. So distraction wise, where do you find, or what would you find is a valuable form of distraction? So I myself, like I said, I will watch. Even watching telly can be, especially something engaging. So watching telly, something engaging like a good book, hobbies, being social, being out and things. As you said, the difference between how people may eat a takeaway in their own home by themselves compared to if they went out and ate the exact same takeaway or the same restaurant with a friend. Sometimes those calories can double if we're at home, and it's very, very different, and nothing's changed apart from our environment. So the environment becomes incredibly important with regards to staying on track. So I myself, I try to, because food in general and meals and what I'm eating will dominate most of the energy of my day in my mind. I find that I have to fill my day with things that will distract me. When you were on your weight loss a few weeks or months ago, was the feelings of being hungry a big thing for you?
So I will start by pointing out that hunger isn't like just one sensation. There's different levels of hunger, and I think it's really important for us to first acknowledge that certain levels of hunger are welcome and acceptable. Like in our current societies, in like our countries at least, it's almost like a rarity that people get hungry, because most people eat when it's time rather than when they are actually hungry, because probably the portions they are eating at the meals or the snacks that they are eating in between meals like don't allow them to actually get hungry. I think it's actually quite a nice thing to let yourself go without eating until you get hungry, because then you can get familiar with that feeling. And I think a lot of people just never get hungry, and you see that a lot of people who never get hungry are overweight or obese. And just by accepting that hunger is normal, hunger isn't something that we should be afraid of, I think that is a massive step. Secondly, if you keep letting yourself get to the point of being ravenously hungry before you would eat, you are going to be much more likely to overeat, because your inhibitions are like completely gone, because you are just, it's a primal instinct to eat, and to eat as much and whatever is in front of you. And usually it's food that is more convenient to eat, so either fast food or pre-packed or high calorie density meals, rather than you starting to cook from scratch and make like a really healthy balanced meal. And you are probably going to you won't be able to pay attention to your fullness signals up until when it's too late and you have overeaten. So I think the understanding of how hunger isn't the worst thing that can happen to us, but then how it has different levels, and we have to find that sweet spot that works for us. Because when you just start to get hungry, you can probably still reply to a couple of emails or finish a couple of programs for clients. When you are past that point, you know that you can't concentrate because it becomes a bigger issue, and then after a certain point you would bite off your own arm because you just can't focus on anything else. And we just have to find where we need to eat. But to answer your question, I found that when I was dieting more aggressively, my hunger was almost non-existent. So when my calories were quite low, that really helped with appetite. On those days, I wasn't fighting my hunger all the time because I was like not that bothered. I made sure that I fueled my training and that I ate enough protein. But overall, if we looked at calories, people would probably think that like, oh my god, she has an eating disorder, because anytime someone pushes their calories below 1200, that's an eating disorder, which is obviously not something that's true in a lot of people's cases, and not everyone will develop issues with their diet and mental health if they are dieting on very low calories. It has to be done in the right way though. It's not just that you go on a juice cleanse and then you don't eat kind of thing forever. But my hunger wasn't a massive issue. Generally speaking, if I drop my calories a little, I'm hungrier than if I drop my calories a lot. So that seems to work really well for me. But then again, I'm dieting maybe for 2 weeks in a month in total. I'm not dieting on super low calories for extended periods of times. I get some refeed and some conscious increases in calorie, which do often come with a conscious and acceptable increase in my body weight. But it doesn't come with an increase in my body fat levels, because overall I'm still in a calorie deficit. This is for when I'm dieting.
It's interesting, isn't it? It really does highlight what works for you. There's many approaches to dieting, and if we specifically think about fat loss or weight loss that we're trying to kind of get to, we speak about sort of, you know, these very low calorie parts of our diet. People will see it as an eating disorder. I know, working in public health, working with obesity management, granted we're looking at a different end of the scale with regards to rapid weight loss to try and improve health markers, but the consensus is that these, usually it's seen that like these very low calorie diets are problematic, damaging to the body, not good for us for our health. The reality is though is that it tends to be problematic purely due to adhering to it psychologically. It can be so alien to, especially if you are, you know, very morbidly obese. A lot of your day is taken up with eating, and if you completely flip the switch to not eating, all of a sudden you've got all this time. And but if you, a lot of the time I've seen people put on these very, very low calorie diets, and again the caveat is that it's to rapidly improve health markers for someone who is very obese. It just shows that for some people that works fantastically. For some people a moderate calorie drop will work well. For some people more extreme for a short amount of time will work well. And it's about finding the things that work well for you, and sometimes that takes trial and error, and it's okay.
And understanding that you're not your diet. Your identity shouldn't be the diet of your choice. You can swap between the dietary methods because they are all just tools to help you. And I think this is just something that people just make a little bit harder for themselves by maybe following the same dietary method even if their weekdays are completely different from their weekends. Like, if you're super busy on the weekdays and you don't mind skipping breakfast, your first meal being lunch and then having like home cooked dinner with your family, great. And what happens when it's the weekend and you wanna go out for brunch with your friends, and then you're also maybe having like a roast dinner, and then you still wanna have lunch as well. So the dietary method that you follow has to be probably adjusted to the change in your lifestyle between your days. And by just not being flexible in the approach, people might do really well for a couple of days out of the week, and then just completely undo all the progress on maybe the weekends, just because they are quite rigid in their approach to the diet. But if they just prioritize the principle of fat loss and chose the method that best suits them on a certain day of the week, they could create a deficit large enough overall in the week that they consistently keep losing weight. But it just this, again, understanding of how it should be done in a certain way, and you can't deviate from that because then you're off plan. But the plan is wrong in the first place.
Yeah, you're kind of set up to fail or think that you've failed. Like the typical calorie counting apps, you know, there'll be some are better than others, but like the simple thing of like, right, I'm going to give you 2,000 calories from Monday to Sunday. But if you are one of those people who, as you say, are very busy during the week, how they eat during the day, and like you said, if they're getting up early for the train and they just don't feel that hungry to have breakfast, like it's okay to skip that meal. Like if you want to bank those calories.
If that meal would normally just be getting a pastry and a takeaway coffee as you're rushing to your train, like, wouldn't it be better if instead of forcing yourself to have a breakfast that is out of necessity because you think you should be having breakfast, but you're not actually hungry, what if you waited until you get to your job and eat around 10-11 when you first start to get hungry, but a better meal that you manage to put some thought in, because you understand that like it doesn't matter in like, unless you're training in the morning, in which case you probably want to fuel your training sessions, or unless you end up restricting and then massively overeating later in the day, skipping breakfast is just how your body feels the best.
We have to again, and like these calorie counting apps can be fantastic. They can be a brilliant tool, and actually something that I think we both promote, especially from an educational perspective, to understand what's in things.
We would almost never let our clients go based off of the calories that the app suggests, because basically what the app does is it gives you a number. But what a lot of people don't understand, that you told the app exactly what you want that number to be. You think that the app calculated it based on your best interest, but you actually usually get asked how much you want to lose in a weight, whether it's realistic for your body or not. And then the calories that you end up with are just based off of, if you want to lose 1 kilo in 1 week, that's 7,700 calories of deficit that you need to create in the week. So you need to be in an over 1,000 calorie deficit every single day. So even if you're a fairly active person, getting taken away 1,000 calories from every day, it can be a ridiculous amount for a lot of people, especially if it's consistently on every day. And it's only because you think you should be able to lose a kilo a week. But depending on your starting body weight, I normally like to suggest 0.5% to 1% weight loss per week for clients for a realistic, moderate weight loss effort. It can be pushed more if someone's more overweight, or if someone wants to get it done and they don't mind if they will be probably hungrier and the dieting will be a bit harder. But as a realistic starting point, if someone is weighs 100 kilograms, then in a week they can realistically lose a kilogram, up to half a kilo to 1 kilo. Now I have females who are 60-70 kilograms and they think they can lose a kilogram, and just by setting an expectation that's not based on anything, just a thought or just a question that the calorie calculator asks, you already have poverty calories that's enough for nothing, and then like obviously you're going to go over like it's not gonna be something that will fuel you enough.
That's the interesting thing about where these guidelines come from. We have to understand where the guidelines come from. So as you said, you know, this like, oh, the apples say I want to lose half a kilo a week, etc. And as you said, like I myself, like I could lose a kilo a week almost without thinking because my weight is very high. But to lose, I mean, you lost weight, well, but you're, you know, many kilos less than me, and this strict number. So a lot of these numbers, I know they come from like bodybuilding. And absolutely right. If you have someone who is, you know, 200 kilos in weight, you can physiologically drop weight a lot quicker because you have more mass to lose. But then you have the issue, the psychological issue, that is massive as well. So in public health, the guidelines were between, and these are for people that would be in like 200 kilo body weight, 5'10", but because you have such a massive amount of psychological difficulty as to why you are that sort of weight, the guidelines there were between 3 and 5% weight drop over 12 weeks, which is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
But you can lose way much more. But as you said, if you just dramatically reduce your calories, psychologically it becomes very, very difficult to adhere to that plan. So we need to look at things of what category am I in? Am I male? Am I female? You said, like, you know, during your period, your hunger levels change, your mood changes and things, and that affects how you eat. I don't have that as male. I am heavier than you are, so our weight goal per week would be slightly different in how much we drop. But then someone in an obese category would have to deal with maybe some more psychological issues attached to that. Someone who's very low in weight, again, it's the extremes, psychological and difficult to lose lots of weight. So it's about setting personalised goals, using them as guidelines, as a scaffolding to understand, and then trial and error. You're not going to nail it first time.
Exactly, just what I wanted to say, that when you set a goal and you start to work towards that goal, you have to be ready to adjust as needed along the road, because chances are you're not going to get it right immediately, because you might think that you'll be able to do something and then in practice it just doesn't work, like you are just not able to stick with it, or you're finding it super easy, so you feel like, oh, I can push it a little bit more. So being able to be ready and being able to be objective about it is just quite tough, because you are going to be emotional about your own decisions and progress. Someone else who's looking at the numbers and the what is going on objectively will be much more likely to be able to give good advice based on the facts, taking your experience into account but without that emotional layer. And I think this can be a very useful way of actually progressing, because no one wants to put in a whole lot of effort, see no results, and then feel like, well, there's no point doing anything, and spend another year not getting anywhere.